How you guys doing? Hey, sorry I got tied up. Anyway, good morning everyone. How are you? I'm sorry I'm late. Uh I have no creative excuse. I was just hey John and Big Sal and Kiyosaki, William, Brian, how are you? How you guys doing? Okay. Here's what I thought would be sort of an interesting thing to talk about, and this is when something in your collection patterns change. I was thinking of early on when I first started. I got the idea that I had to have the Holy Trinity. All right, that was what I wanted. So I got a started off with a Patek Philippe Calatrava. It was an older one, but it was a nice one. And then I was told, well, you can't wear that with everything. You have to get something a little more sporty. And so I got an overseas, the OS one, Vacheron Constantin OS one. The final one of the Holy Trinity I got an Audemars Piguet, and I think it was a jewel, but I'm not sure. It had a moon phase, and it was just too small. But I thought, okay, well, I got the Holy Trinity, and the Audemars Piguet was really a nice watch, but just didn't do anything for me. Not that some other version of Audemars Piguet would, and the and I ended up trading it in when I got my 21, the Vacheron Constantin Historiques American 1921. And so now I didn't have an Audemars Piguet. And then later on, when I got my wife a watch for an anniversary gift, I didn't have enough money, so I had to trade in my overseas. And so now I didn't have my overseas. And finally, um, not too long ago, I think it was just last year, I sold my Calatrava simply because I wasn't wearing it anymore. And so, I was looking at, I did a collection review. And when you do a collection review, in fact, I think that's something everybody ought to do is take a look and say, and sort of see how things went from one thing to the other. And mine has gone through several different changes. At one point, I thought it'd be fun to have the Jacquet 736s that are all different kinds of brands. And so I started collecting those. I ended up with five of them, and they're fun to have. And then I started really looking at the AHCI, the independents, really top ones. But the one watch that I got, and I'm not even sure why I got it at the time, was a Harry Winston. Um, this was pretty early on, and somehow I learned about the retrograde movement being something special. And so I contacted Agenor and I said, could you tell me about this? And they sent me this, I guess, a diagram of how it worked and everything. I was just thought, wow, that's really great. And then I wanted to find out more about who made it, Jean-Marc Viderec, and then I found out about the fact that he was the first guy to win the Grand Prix award for the Watchmaker of the Year. And so I started looking at these guys. I said, who are these guys? Well, interestingly, um, Roger Dubuis and Jean-Marc Viderec and some of these other ones who are really top-notch watchmakers never belonged to the AHCI, but they were of that quality. I think perhaps the reason that Jean-Marc Viderec he didn't make watches. He just made these movements and modules for movements. And some other kinds of things. So to me, that was really interesting learning about all these, what they were doing, and so that was just so my collection started reflecting that. Well, one of the problems was I couldn't afford it. A lot of these really great watchmen, I couldn't afford the things. They were, especially after the pandemic when they started shooting north of 100,000 bucks just to knock on the door. And so, you know, I I started looking for things more like the Harry Winston, and that is watches that has some module in it by somebody who was a great watchmaker. And I found them in all different kinds of places. Hermes, not just Sauvage, but Hermes has some work by different top watchmakers. Van Cleef and Arpels does, and Chanel does, and different kinds of things like that. And so that was sort of where I went. But then I found out people were getting wise to the same thing. It's that, aha, here you can get these watches by these really great watchmakers, but you don't have to pay a lot of money. And early on, when I got Daniel Roth, a couple of those, and a couple of Roger Dubuis, nobody was paying any attention to them, and all of a sudden they shot up in price. So it was so that was when I thought, I like the idea of having a really great watchmaker to have a watch from, but I can't afford them. So I I thought, you know, maybe what we could do is, I know who they are and I could contact them and say, hey, could we make a watch with you guys? We'll buy the movement and the case and so on and so forth. They said, sure. And so I got a bunch of guys together, and that was how Larique came about. But and so now I'm looking at watches, and well, that's the way to get a watch. I'll just, Larique will start making more watches. But then I thought, that's every that gets expensive too, doing it all the time. So we're gonna have to figure out how to do that in a more tempered way. And so that's one of the things. That's sort of where I am right now. But um, something could come along, and so anyway, that's pretty much what happened to me. And what I'm interested in is what happened to you guys. Uh, are you collecting the same kind of watches, or even want the same kind of watches? Let me add an aside here. Um, Almost from the beginning of collecting watches, I've been asked, "Well, how come you don't have a Rolex?" And it's like, if you don't have a Rolex, that means you're a Rolex hater, you know? And if you have a Rolex, that means you're a jerk. So, I mean, neither one of those is true. The reason I don't have a Rolex is that I find other watches I like better. I like Rolex. I have a great deal of respect for Rolex, but it's just not a watch that I'm interested in getting. Some other time, some other day, I may, and maybe they'll bring the prints back, and I can get one of those. Ah, okay, guys. Yeah, Bill is running late. I'm sorry about that. All my apologies. Okay, so let's hear from you guys. What are some things that have, if you have changed, or if you're just starting collection, maybe nothing will change. Oh, by the way, too, like I said, I have nothing against Rolexes. Some people can start collecting Rolexes and love them and do it until they're finished doing wasting a lot of money on watches. Anybody else have anything that's sort of like a trend that you might see going one way or the other? I tell you, if one other thing too, sometimes people's financial situation can change. And so you'll see somebody who starts off with Hamiltons and Tussauds and Longines, and then they'll have a Rolex or a Omega, and then one day they keep getting better and better and better in terms of, now better, I should say, more and more expensive as time goes on, and that's sort of a function of what they can afford. Um, other times they go the other way. Anybody got any sort of patterns that you can think of in terms of changes that you may have made or know about that somebody may have made with in watch collection? It's okay to just not all at once, but anybody. Nothing? Come on, guys. Uh, Coffee time. Yeah, no kidding. My cup is empty and it needs filling. Okay. What are you pouting because I'm late? Somebody's got to have something. Okay. Let me see if I can float some ideas out. I I think ah another reason sometimes companies themselves come out with new things. One thing, let me give you a recent example. Louis Vuitton, it's called the company is called LVMH. The LV is for Louis Vuitton, and the LH or the MH LVMH is for somebody MH. I forgot who. But they're talking about bringing back the brand, the Daniel Roth brand. Uh, I recently sold one of my chronograph, um, Daniel Roth. I'm just not a chronograph guy. But there are other ones I thought that they look really interesting that I might want to have. I still have one. I have the Metropolitan. But what do you guys think about when a company say, hey, look, these Daniel Roth watches seem to be pretty popular, and they're running out of them. And so maybe what we ought to do is, bring the brand back. Now, you may ask, well, wait a minute, didn't Bulgari buy the rights to Daniel Roth? That's true. But LVMH bought Bulgari. So they own the rights to whatever Bulgari owns, and plus the other ones. They have an impressive um, resume of watch companies, and they're starting to build. One of the rumors is that LVMH might buy Richemont. And why would LVMH buy Richemont? A lot of possibilities. One thing I had heard some time ago was that there was a lot of Russian money in Richemont, and something may have happened where uh, there may have been some divestment. And so here's LVMH, and they having some money available for Richemont, and you have a willing seller, perhaps. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Like I said, this was a very vague rumor that I heard, and it has no other grounding. And of course, if that happens, who knows what'll happen after that. But it's good to be aware of. Hey, by the way, another thing that may lead to change. For years, I couldn't afford a Urban Jurgensen. Urban Jurgensen it's one of those things that got into my collection. I'm not even sure why, other than the fact that I really like their watches, and I really couldn't afford them. So I didn't like them because I couldn't afford them. They were just gorgeous watches. They still are. And so I got one because when the sale was going through to Kari Voutilanen, they had a train wreck sale, sold a bunch of them at almost half price, and that was when I got one. That's when I could afford to get one. And so what's going to happen is going to be interesting. What is Kari Voutilainen going to do with Urban Jurgensen? There was a watch that they were sort of talking about coming out with called the Alfred. Urban Jurgensen was, and it was going to come out about 15,000. If they have the D4 movement, which is a honest to God Urban Jurgensen movement, that would be a really good deal. Now, with Kari Voutilainen buying the company, or him and some other investors, it's going to be interesting to see what he does with that. And so, again, when something changes like that, this could lead collectors to say, hey, this is something I've never looked at before because I couldn't afford, but now maybe it's time to take a look at them. Same thing with Daniel Roth. These were old and not too available. So what can happen? Ah, there you are. Something happened and all of my chat froze. Well, now it's out. Hi, Rancher. Um, am I having my beret service? Uh, hey, neighbor. Oh, let's see. I don't know. That was really funny. I got stuck here. Now I see you. Hi, Tim Morgans, Rancher. Brendan. Hi, Brendan. Can I talk a bit about Larique's you mentioned for sale? Sure, I'll do that in a second. Hi, Gilberto. Design Atelier. I always like design, and I have no talent for it, but I respect it. Never liked that group, New Direction. Jesus. Hey, Washington football. Good morning to you. Hi, Billy. Jonathan. Good day. Rob. Oh, from Portugal. I have a wonderful Portugal story, but I can't tell you right now. I love Portugal. Hi, obese tuna. Kirby, Cabby Lake. Good morning. Turkey Vulture. My God, this is what a wonderful group. Hi, Lambo. Ralph. Good morning. Okay, Thomas. Good to see you. Rohit. Tom Burnett. Ralph again. Hans. Okay, looking forward to seeing what Bulgari will do with the Daniel Roth relaunch. Yes, that's me too. Okay, now I see it. There was somehow all of my discussion was frozen. Ralph P. Tribalism is weird. All you have, as if you have to hate something just by liking something else. Yeah, that is weird and pretty good description. Always wanted under the radar collection. Now in craving something loud like a yellow gold Rolex. Um, that would be very interesting. Yellow gold Rolex. I decided I'm not a fan of Arabics or Roman numerals. What is there? There are no Arabics or Roman numerals. Oh, just sort of like yeah. I have my H. Moser center seconds is that way. There's no number, just index markers. Only Tonda and Toric for me now. Maybe more next month. always, always liked Toric. I think there were some opportunities I had on the Toric way back when, and the Ionic by Parmigiani, and I sort of like, it's one of those things. Maybe I should have got one then. And bracelet only. Okay. Tim is moving away from anything hyped. Okay. Yeah. You know, is that a lot of times if something is hyped, that basically the company spending a lot of money on advertising. That was one thing about Larique was that we didn't spend anything on advertising. everything we had went to the watch, and shipping and, paying the bills that we had to create the watch and get our mitts on it. And I think all of us, just about all of us, have ours now. Going through shipping, international shipping is always something I'd rather not do. I just got a huge bill from a watch that I sold, and went over a border, and they needed some kind of ID so that they could bill whatever this other country wanted. And the guy who had bought it didn't have the information. I said, "Oh, okay, go ahead and use mine." The big got a bill for 800 and something dollars on a $4,500 watch. I thought, holy smoke. Uh, so some of the VAT is can be very, very mind-boggling. Okay, let's see what you got. Moving away from anything hype. I'm going small watches and more elegant. Yeah, small is a relative term. We made the Larique at 39 millimeters, because we saw this, it was sort of on the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It wasn't too big, it wasn't too small, it was just right. And I like that size. 39 millimeter turned out to work out really well. Hi, Koji. Yeah, you're right, Koji. Now I am. Collecting more vintage. Just bought a Longines Caliber 30L, 18,000 VPH. You know, I am, to be frank about it, I'm really not into vintage watches, but every now and then I find a vintage watch I really like. And like that, you found one with 18,000 VPH. It's the same kind of lower frequency that are used by all of the top watchmakers. Yeah, you got to be careful, Brian. You start collecting more expensive watches, and down the rabbit hole you go. And what you've got to do when you get a watch, got to stop online somehow. Get a little blue box with some nice gift for your better half. That's my advice. Just got a Moser Heritage dual time. Ralph, that watch is, I love that watch, and I have this sort of a maroon color to it. What that is a beautiful watch, and I like the whole heritage look and line that they have. Yeah, okay, Brendan, I finally got them now. Thanks. Uh, yeah, Hennessy is the last name, and it's not Most, is it? It's something else, but maybe it's Most. Big sports watch are for the younger man. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, I think so. Perhaps the question is, why do you take a new direction in watch collection? Yeah, that's certainly one of the things. I'm starting to veer away from micro brands at the moment, and I'm trying to sell some of those now. I got really into vintage Omegas and picked up. You know, the thing I like about vintage Omegas is the fact that they haven't been stuffing those stupid. Okay, this is me. I know it's not everybody. The silicone hairsprings in them. Hi, Artie. Let's see. Maserati dialed Daytonas. Okay, Daytonas. I'm conflicted about mainstream JLC Polaris and alternative harboring Doppel Felix. That's a wonderful choice because I think they're two good choices. I would probably side with the harboring Doppel Felix, uh, because you know exactly who the watchmaker was. And as much as I like Jaeger-LeCoultre, you never know who the watchmaker is, but they make such good things. Either it's sort of like no matter what choice you make in a couple like that, I don't think you can make a bad one. Yeah, like I said, I'm not a chronograph fan. So I'm the worst person on earth to ask about chronographs. There's one I like, and that was the Agengraph. That might be a lot of people talking about the future projects for Larique. That might be one, is starting off with I think that'd be a fairly expensive project, but some people have said, why don't we do one with Agengraph? I haven't asked about that yet. That would be an interesting one, be a challenge. Hi, Gilberto. In my case, weight loss had a palpable effect on my wrist size. Plus, I can't wear heavy dive watches as well as I used to. You know, for most of my life, I've had the opposite problem. I kept getting bigger and bigger, and I'd stopped going up. I started going out. But now I've been trying to go back down again and been had some success in it. Um, I don't know. I got about a 7.25 inch wrist, and I think this is 42 or 43 millimeters. This is the big boy. Um, my Chanel. So I don't know. To me, it's always sort of between 38 millimeters and 42. That's sort of my sweet spot. Sometimes a little bigger, sometimes a little smaller. But those are the size I like. Should I phase out of Invicta? Asking for a friend. Yeah. Um, no, I don't think so. Tell your friend if it fits his personality, if he loves him, yeah, stick with him. Okay, what else is going on? Hi, Dave. Joaz. I am now collecting more designer brands, Cartier, Hermes, and recently Piaget. Yeah, those Cartier is a little harder to nail down because on the one hand, they've had, they put in ETAs and call them God knows what. And on the other hand, they've had one of the top watchmakers in the world making movements for them. Carol Forstier Casapi, she's over at Tag Heuer now, and what they're doing there is even more interesting in this respect. Instead of going with silicon, they're developing carbon. I don't know how I would feel about carbon hairsprings any more than I do silicon because I don't think you're going to get much flexibility with carbon, but it would going to be very interesting to see what she comes up with. And so a Cartier with a movement by Kasapi, or one that was made while she was directing the movement uh, arm of Cartier, I think would be very interesting. Also, too, some of the Cartiers have. There's one, the monopusher torture that has the movement by THA, the company that FP Jorn and a couple other guys started around in the 1990s, I think, late 1990s. But you can, if you flip that watch over, man, I tell you, it's just like in compared to any other watches they have, that's really amazing. Sold my SS Daytona and bought a JLC Reverso. Uh, 17th anniversary. Oh, wow. That reversal is a nice one. That's a very nice reversal. Hey, Brendan, Richemont is publicly traded. Yeah, I'm as much larger market cap, making Richemont a target. Thanks, Brendan. I'm not a I'm not a I mean my stock investments are pretty much safe. It's like if it's safe, I'll invest. But that's good to know. Hi, Rob T. So yeah, that I just read that. William, agreed. Tuna, I just picked up the Tissot PRX Chrono, 42 millimeter blue. Tissot's got some. My favorite Tissot is and they don't make them anymore, but you can get them at a Song, the ones with the what do they call the 6498 by Unitas, Unitas slash ETA. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Moet and Hennessy. That's it. Louis Vuitton, Moet, Hennessy. Thanks, Jonathan. Good morning, Michael. Okay, where are we going here? Hi, Artie. Uh, love Ross and Silberman, and can't wait to see what movement Silverstein said. Silverstein, uh, his his designs, I think, are the coolest designs. I'm not sure what sort of how you would characterize that style, but it's I just think they're great. They're very colorful. They're a fun watch. Hi, Watches Collector. I recently bought a Harboring 2 split chronograph with a salmon color dial from UK. I am very satisfied. It is one of the best watches. It is. This is one thing about Harboring 2 is that they don't make very many. They 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 don't gouge the buyer, and they have a very they I think just about everything they have is based on the A11 movement. I think that's their base movement, and then they build on that. I don't know if they have another base movement for a chronograph or some of the other ones, but they're really, really nice. Um, okay, yeah, yes, Kino. He's prepping his new company. Looking forward to it. Saw his interview recently speaking about caring for current owners and the future of things. Interesting. Yeah, if that's the new Urban Jurgensen Rancher, I know I'm going over a little, but I'm late, so I wanted to catch up. But then, and then the okay, let's see if how I'm doing. Hi, Andrews. Picane, any thoughts? Um, yeah, that's a French company, isn't it, Andrew? So yeah, Moser Perpetual annual calendar are really nice. Oh, wait a minute. That's Patek Philippe annual calendar. Rob, my experience at Rolex AD has meant I'm into Longa in a big way. After looking at the mechanics of my Zeitwerk date and Longa 1 Perpetual, I don't know what I saw in Rolex hype. I'll say this for Rolex. Rolex has access to the silicon hairsprings. They decided not to use them. They've got my respect. They make good watches. They've been sort of, sometimes you have the same watch coming out with a new paint job, and it's reliable and solid, and if you get one, you know what you're getting, and it'll work as a watch. That's pretty nice. Hi, Daniel. Um, my ideal is a Moser Pioneer Perpetual. Yeah, I don't know. Uh, if I got a perpetual calendar, the only one I would be thinking about would be the Moser, because uh, I when Mike used to be the U.S. rep, I'd go see him, and he'd show me how they were really great to set, and that would be my concern. Um, Thoughts on thoughts on Voutilanen and Ving 8. My thoughts are this: I wish I had one. I can't afford them. Those things, I they're $70,000 now, but the Ving 8, what a sweet watch. That's sort of, I think also that movement is used as a base on some of his other ones. And so, yeah, if one fell off the turnip truck, and landed on my wrist, I wouldn't mind at all. We have a burgeoning middle class worldwide, so Rolexes are the gold standard for watches. Easy to move. Everyone understands it. Still great watches, though. Yeah, pretty much so. Um, Pekingese seem to have great watches and within reach. Yeah, Gilberto, I think I did a video on that at one time, and that was pretty much describes it. Yeah, Ralph, they do in the ladies' range, but you know something? I don't know of a watch company that didn't have quartz watches in women's watches. And some of the smaller women's watches, they use quartz because that was how they could get the accuracy they wanted. So quartz in the women's watches isn't saying anything against, women's watches. It's simply, silicon. Well, what's quartz? It's silicon and oxygen. So you, that's been around. I don't know if they're testing it, Ralph. I think a lot of people would be very upset if they started stuffing in silicon. Here's the other thing too about Rolex. Rolex and get comfy here. Rolex and H. Moser did something, and that is to build a really great hairspring. And that the Rolex has the what do they call theirs? Chrome, something chrome, parachrome, or something like that hairspring, and it's made of niobium and chromium with some other things in it. And then the Straumann hairspring by H. Moser is uh, niobium and titanium. The same guy actually was involved in designing both of those hairsprings. And the thing about it is that both companies were able to develop a hairspring that was, almost totally non-magnetic attracting. Okay, this is the big thing about silicon hairsprings. You don't have to worry about the magnetism or magnetism, nor do you have to worry about heat or cold. If somebody says, if you wanted accuracy, what would you go with? A Niverox or a silicon one? Sure, I'd go with silicon, but better than that, I'd go with a smartwatch. That thing is hooked up to an atomic watch and inside a mountain in Colorado or something. So the whole argument about, oh well, this will give us a little more accuracy. Geez, my phone, my iPhone, and I think a lot of us set our watches using our iPhones, our mobile phones, our computers. So we got accuracy coming out our ears. With a mechanical watch, that's where it becomes the art, I think. Well, you don't know that, Andres. They may care about it. Hey, Gustav. Uh, Kinesaki, quartz on women's watches and kids' watches. Ralph, who mentioned quartz? I said Rolex uses silicon. Yeah, you did. Somebody else said they use siloxy, and you did, Ralph, in the women's watches, in some of the women's watches, I know, and the what do they call it? Not the Pearl Diver, but something like Pearl Master. That's the one they use it in. Hey, Lambatan. I started collecting Patek with a Nautilus. That's a nice watch. I like that. And then I turned into a more classic Calatrava. That was the one I started with. Then I went into complications. That's an interesting, but all with Patek Philippe. The Breguet bend did increase accuracy. Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's another thing, the overcoil on the Brigade. Good point. FPJ's quartz is fun though. I agree. But look at what FP Jorn did with quartz. He put in a little rotor, a little mini rotor in his Elegante with a quartz watch, so that when they and he made it for women originally, and so when they put it down for the night, it would stop using most of the battery, and so this would save the battery overnight, but have just enough battery power to keep the time accurate. And so when they got up again, the old watch would go zoop to the correct time, and off you go. No, so that's more than just, some off the shelf Ronda quartz that they're going to stick in there. This was something he designed the quartz himself. Have you ever seen the lines on the back of an Elegante? The the circuitry. It's just with a big heart at the end. That's I mean, there's quartz and there's quartz. I should say there's quartz and there's FP Jorn quartz. Collections are dynamic and not always static. There you go, Artie. Uh, Taste and impressions change. I agree. Michael's going to be at the W&W. Viennese quartz, which never too off. Maybe it was too colorful. I don't know, anything by Viennese Halter would be really interesting. Okay, guys, I've gone over 15 minutes. I was only 4 minutes late, but I won't be late this afternoon. What I want to talk about is sort of some kind of of watch tsunamis, watchmaking tsunamis. What has really shaken up the watch business? I think one is the silicon hairspring and the action taken by Swatch, Rolex, and Patek Philippe to get them. But then the reaction. By the way, too, Patek Philippe no longer advertises that they have silicon hairsprings. They're very subtle about that. They were bragging about it for a while, and people do think there's a difference. Some people do. I do. You don't have to though. Okay, all right. One last. The Lady Data just is equipped with caliber 2236 self-winding mechanical movement, entirely developed, manufactured by Rolex. Okay, Ralph. Its architecture makes exceptionally precise and reliable. Good to hear. Yeah, it's a good brand. There's no doubt about it. Not a religion, no. All right, everybody, take care. If you're around this afternoon, drop on by, and I will be on time.